Hello, everyone, and welcome back. We have the October 2025 monthly report to go over today, and I have skimmed through this very briefly. Seems like there's some very interesting stuff to go over. Of course, a lot of ship stuff because IAE will be coming in the very near future. We got some new teases, it seems like, but we're going to go through pretty much all the monthly report, read through the different sections, and see what the different teams have been working on. So if you want to see the latest news for Star Citizen and what will be coming in the very near future, then sit back, relax, and let's go through it. So we have the PU Monthly Report, October 2025. Welcome to the latest PU Monthly Report. Read on for all the behind-the-scenes details of development throughout October, including progress on NICs, upcoming ships, AI behaviors, the in-game economy, and more. Let's start with AI content. In October, the narrative and social AI teams supported several initiatives for the upcoming Alpha 4.4 patch, including landing zone fixes. While technical issues prevented the complete implementation of these updates, they will be added in a future patch. As unveiled at CitizenCon Direct, the team supported the social AI setup for Levski. They also captured and supported the setup of additional voice packs to support future social and mission content. Discussions with the combat AI team kicked off combat voice packs, with the plan to capture new ones in the upcoming year based on the latest version of the behavior. The goal with this new approach is to consolidate FPS and dogfighting triggers while specializing recordings to focus on specific groups. So we have some fixes that sound like they've been working on for landing zones. They haven't been able to completely implement them, but seems like we might see some of those fixes in 4.4, and then the rest will be added in a future patch, probably when there's maybe the rest of the transit refactor that comes in. So that will be nice to see. Next, we have AI features. Last month, AI features continued to iterate on first reaction and usable animations, in particular, those where items are being carried. They also fixed crashes relating to human combat, changed how NPCs are scanned and how they react. Accuracy calculations were simplified, while the values used to tweak them are now easier to understand. This will also include a fix to the fire rate of burst and single-shot weapons. Numerous bugs were fixed for the Ormandi, including those introduced by late-in-the-day action refining and the implementation of arena reset functionality. The team also supported serialization of the skill extenders and began to support the early design considerations for a boss variant. So, another variant of the Ormandi, potentially? The Ormandi's animation set was also vastly improved, including the beam, bite, death, and emerge sequences. The timing, posing, and blending of attacks were enhanced to feel more natural and threatening. Technical and visual bugs were also addressed, such as weak spots, jitters, and animation playbacks. I have quite enjoyed fighting the Ormandi. I do think the animations are very smooth, they feel really good, so you can see there they talk about the work they did to make it feel like that. But I am quite interested to see what that variant would be. I know that they, at CitizenCon in 2024, they talked about a few different possible Valakar variants. One of the versions that they showed was, they called it a Valakar variant at the time, but I think it then became a separate creature, which is the Ormandi. So maybe we see something similar, a variant, maybe that's on Nyx 1 in the swamp biomes or something you can run into. That'd be pretty cool to see. Next, we have AI Tech. The AI Tech team made improvements to navigation mesh generation, including to the generation algorithm. They also updated navigation links, specifically to the traversal behavior when NPCs go through manual doors, elevators, and interruptibles. The team then implemented the first working version of the flight pathfinder through the voxel grid. The first pass of the system that manages AI agent scripting in the flow graph was completed. This enforces the validation of the action sequence to ensure the correct execution context is set in the systemic activities, providing a more reliable way to manually script agents and an extra guarantee that actions are validated and executed correctly. This included work on the critical flow mode for AI agents as well. While in this mode, failures in action execution are still reported as errors but can be handled with fallbacks, allowing the flow to proceed instead of failing and potentially stalling. Next, we have the AI Game Intelligence Development Team. In October 2025, the Game Intelligence Development Team worked toward the next milestone for Submission System V2, focusing on implementing outline properties, the first pass of a prototype property window for selecting an outline item. They also continued implementing the outline declaration, which is based on a declarative system where the designers first declare the resources that will be needed for the mission and the context in which they will be used. For example, resources global to the mission are first declared. The GID team then elaborated on the preliminary technical design for the entity scripting topic. Furthermore, they fixed issues with the Apollo tool, allowing them to continue debugging StarScript. The devs are currently analyzing Mannequin to propose UI visuals to improve reading and simplify the overall use of the tool. Finally, bugs were fixed and new features were worked on for StarScript as suggested by the designers. Next, we have animation. Animation worked on the Ormandi throughout October alongside improvements to the Copian. They also discussed a dog capture with animal trainers. Interesting. Maybe some further Copian animation improvements, or maybe we'll get dogs in the universe. That'd be cool. Last month saw a major push within the facial animation team to complete the new content for Alpha 4.4. This included new animations for the returning ATC character mentioned in September's report. I would assume that's going to be the ATC guy for Levski. I forget his name off the top of my head, but I'm sure one of you can let me know down in the comments. The really eccentric, cool, hippie kind of guy that does the ATC stuff at Levski. So new stuff coming in for him, it sounds like, and they're working on the animations for that. And then at the start of the month, so last month, October, the team attended another shoot with the narrative and motion capture teams. This time, they captured content for a new mission giver, as well as multiple voice packs for NPCs throughout the Nyx system. These will be released as part of Alpha 4.4, though the mission giver will not appear until a future patch. Okay. Next, we have art characters. The character art team finalized various armors for the new gang and in-game rewards, and progressed with a new heavy armor and clothing items. The concept art team finalized handoff sheets and began exploring directions for a new gang. So this is probably some of the new armors that we have seen in the roadmap update, some of the stuff that was in the CitizenCon goodies package that we got as like an armor you can wear, but I think from what we saw, there's some NPCs that'll be wearing that as well. And then some new armor for a new gang, assuming that will be in Nyx, probably with some other content that comes in the first couple of months of next year. All right, so now we have art ships, and we got quite a bit of stuff to go through here. We got some images and some updates, so let's go through it. So, first in the UK, the ship team supported the release of the Anvil Paladin, Asperia Stinger, and Grey's Market Shiv at CitizenCon Direct. And then we have an image of the Aurora, which we'll read through. Let's read through the next statement here, and then we'll talk about this image briefly. So, work on the Aegis Hammerhead and RSI Aurora continued to bring them up to modern standards. For the Hammerhead, design are currently setting up the revisions, including the addition of blast doors throughout the corridors and updated component placement. The Aurora is currently awaiting downstream support, partially for audio and VFX, as these feature some of the oldest in-game assets. So, you should be seeing the image of the Aurora on the screen here. From what I can see, it really does not look much different. I'm trying to tell if maybe the outside, I will say, doesn't really look any different to me. The inside, you can see the pilot seat. I can't entirely tell if that's different either. It looks like that console with the sticks. I think because it comes kind of up to you when you sit in the seat. So that may have not changed much. Looks like they haven't removed any of the struts or anything. Oh, I can see something. Right below the circular entrance docking collar, you can see down to the left of it, there's now a little entrance panel button, so you'll press that to open the door instead. It'll be interesting to see if they've made any other improvements to the entry there, because it's a little bit finicky sometimes. Maybe if they added a little bit better integrated set of stairs that fold out or something like that. We'll have to see. But that's all I really can obviously see. I can see on the inside of the door, if you look through the glass, the bottom half of that glass, you can see another door panel on the inside that would be for opening the door, the glass panel from the inside. So little things like that. We'll have to see what other changes we get on the Aurora there, but that's a few little things that I can see from that picture. So now let's keep going on with the rest of the ship updates. So the Hull B is currently being prepared for its white box review, with the final touches being made to ensure it hits the required functionality criteria. So probably at this point has moved into gray box. I would expect this to be maybe a early, maybe like March or April ship of next year if it continues at this current pace. We'll have to see. Maybe we see it for Invictus, although it'd be a little bit weird to have a cargo ship like that in Invictus, but we'll have to see. Both Drake Ironclad models and the command module progressed well into Greybox, with geometry and lighting updates to the modular kits helping set the interior tone throughout. And then we have another image here of, this is definitely a Drake ship. I would assume this is going to be the Ironclad because it's coming right after they talk about it. So this is coming up some set of stairs into some side corridor. I don't know where this is exactly. There's not too much really to take away from this, unless this is that rumored other Drake ship that'll be coming at IAE, possibly. But I think with the placement of the picture in the report coming right after the Ironclad update, it's probably the Ironclad. So there's a little bit of a sneak peek at it. Next, we have 4 unannounced ships progressed through October. The first is on track for its final review in early November. That probably means it's a IAE ship, while the second is art complete and currently with the downstream teams. That would probably mean whatever that ship is going to be possibly the end of year, like December patch ship. We also have another image here that shows something Drake. This, I think, is probably going to be that rumored data mined Drake ship to be coming at IAE. You can't tell too much about the shape here. I don't see if it's going off of the data mines, if it's that silhouette from 2024 CitizenCon that look really wonky but kind of look Drake. I don't see any like Corsair wings in this picture. So we'll have to see, but definitely Drake, and definitely very excited to see what this thing even is. So then we've got some more updates here. We have the third and upcoming variant passed its Lot 0 review. Following this, the downstream teams began their tasks ahead of its final review. That's again probably going to be, I would guess, another IAE ship. Then we have art was also completed for an all-new ship before it continued down the pipeline, with paints being created alongside a full pass from QA. Another new vehicle, the Greycat UTV, which was briefly shown during the introduction of the STV, has entered its white box phase. So I think that's a little kind of military-ish version of the STV. I think it has like some weapon racks and some stuff like that. It looked pretty cool, the little bit that we've seen of it. So that's been put into white box. I would guess that's going to be probably released at, I would guess, Invictus next year. That'll be the ground vehicle we get for that sale. But that'll be cool to see. I know that a lot of people have been wanting them to make that for a while, so looking forward to seeing that. Let me know what you think on that one, particularly if you're looking forward to that down in the comments. And we have a huge announcement right here. I did not see this until just now, but this is big. Finally, for the UK team, pre-production kicked off for the Anvil Liberator. This phase is before official production begins and aims to get a solid base for the wider team to use for further estimation and concept requests to aid in smoother delivery. So, pre-production for the Anvil Liberator. So I would guess the Liberator will probably go through some reconcepting. I think it's a little bit more of an outdated. I can't remember exactly when it was sold as a concept, but it's been several years at least. So there's probably some things they want to update on it, change a little bit. So I wouldn't be surprised if within the next maybe 2 months or so we see that go into full production. Does that mean we get it at the end of next year? I would say there's a good chance we do if they're starting it around now, because it's a decently large Anvil ship, but not huge. So we could see that as kind of a big ship for IAE next year, but that is big. I have been a fan of the Liberator for a long time, and I'm really looking forward to it. So if you own a Liberator, make sure to let me know what you think down in the comments on that. Do you think there'll be any changes made to it? Do you think we'll get it for IAE next year, or would it be further down the road or sooner? Let me know what you think. Then we have the North American team progressed with 2 unannounced vehicles. One is currently with downstream teams for closeout ahead of its final review, while the second is approaching its gray box review in early November. So that first one, I would guess, is going to be another IAE ship, hopefully, from the North American team. Then the second one, gray box, that probably will be in early next year. somewhere in there, ship. Elsewhere, the RSA Perseus had a large-scale developer and QA playtest this month to check its robustness and intent in combat, which was a great success. That's interesting. So they had a giant internal battle with the Perseus to test it out and went well. So that gives me hope that the ship will it'll perform its role quite well. And then finally, for the ship section, we have white box work continued on the Drake Kraken, with more developers moving onto it as other projects were completed. So overall, that's quite a juicy ship section. It's more than I thought that we might get for an October one, because again, a lot of the time in October, they're kind of tied up with CitizenCon stuff, but I guess maybe they weren't so much this year. But a lot of very interesting stuff coming down the pipeline, stuff coming soon at IAE with the Perseus, all the other little things, the UTV ground vehicle, the Liberator. I think the Liberator that's just, I am giddy to get the Liberator. So that'll be really, really exciting, and looking forward to seeing all those come in, hopefully very, very soon. So now we'll go through the core gameplay section. This section's really small this month. Let's go through it. So the core gameplay teams push forward on the inventory revamp. Okay, they showed that a little bit at CitizenCon. This involved working on the equipment area where players can add weapons, mods, and equipment, including tractor beams and medical guns. We are bringing back the ability to have 2 weapons stored on your back while you hold a third one in your hands. That'll be nice. And then the team also worked on the different inventory tabs and floating item slots, and kicked off the early stages of capital ship repair, rearm, and refueling. This involved getting started on technical documentation to properly break down the necessary tasks. So that feature, again, is meant to be implemented as part of the Tactical Strike Group's activity that they'll be having. They said about mid-next year is when they target to bring that in. So what is that? 7-ish months from now, 8 months from now. So they're working on the feature for capital ships to be able to repair, rearm, and refuel from the ship itself, small ships landed in the hangar. I'm really looking forward to that. I really hope it also extends to maybe you can rearm the capital ship from the supplies on board as well, and they can use that on other ships. So we'll see, but really looking forward to seeing that come into the verse. Next, we have the economy team. Looks like a decent update from them. The team spent last month building the economy of Nyx and giving the system character. As part of this, mining, refining, and shops received passes to ensure the right story is told through balance and numbers. For freelance cargo trading, besides the usual changes and new trade routes, the team worked on a journal entry to steer players in the right direction and give insight into how they think about trading. Several missions were adjusted based on the salvage career developments. For example, missions should now spawn ships that give fairer rewards for the buy-in time and effort invested. Following positive feedback on the faction competition missions, the team provided support for new missions and events currently in production. At the same time, they continued looking into ways to incentivize cooperative gameplay. Next, we have graphics, VFX programming, and planet tech. Is this a new section? This might be a new section. Or maybe they squished some sections together. I don't know. But following the preview channel testing of Vulkan, the graphics team fixed many performance issues, the vast majority of which were caused by running out of video memory. With Vulkan, all memory is managed manually by the game rather than the driver. In Engine, there are several features that didn't have a memory cap or correctly report their expected memory usage. This meant that in the graphics option menu, a lower video memory usage was reported than the reality, and once players ran out, performance declined significantly. Most of these issues were addressed, however, video memory usage is still higher than desired, so several optimizations are underway to address it. Alongside Vulkan, the team's other major PU initiative is the planet tech aspect of Genesis. While this is still ongoing, the devs are starting to achieve the desired visual quality in a variety of areas, as demonstrated at CitizenCon Direct. In parallel, there are several in-progress systems that will bring performance and memory usage to the desired level. I'm really looking forward to seeing all the Genesis stuff come in. They said it was going to be coming in starting next year, probably with Nyx 1 at some point in the first few months of the year, I would guess. But they're working on stuff right now so that the performance won't be absolute crap, because the places might look really good, but if you have like 5 FPS when you're there, it's not going to be very enjoyable. So hopefully they can get that working so that we can have at least decent performance in those new locations. So that'll be good to see. Next, we have mission design. Mission Design worked on the recent limited time event, the Frontier Fighters Finale. This included missions in Pyro and Stanton, along with changes to the tracking tech introduced in the Resource Drive event, which allows players to contribute to phases of contracts and earn rewards. The team also completed a major loot refresh, with the devs updating the UGF and distribution centers to give greater future control and bring them up to par with the current design. This is something missions and level design will continue to update each time they use older locations. Although they've updated it, but they've also kind of broke the respawning for loot on a lot of places, so they do need to fix that still. The devs also added several more locations, including the space-based ship graveyard, which was updated to support the ship ambush archetype. Additional ship graveyards and UGFs were added to generate more missions, supporting the increased player cap and new players. The mission team also completed their work on the Accept from World feature, this will allow players to accept missions from physical items in the verse instead of having to just use the contract broker. Wicklow's Emporium is the test case for this. This will enable missions outside of mission providers to improve immersion. For example, it could enable a physical job board offering missions around a specific location. The team also set up the new courier tech at existing locations to make them more robust when they go online. The missions in Pyro were the first step in testing this system. Work also progressed on the features shown at CitizenCon Direct. System-to-system hauling progressed well, with the devs adding new missions that will require players to take items between star systems. These missions will expand the hauling career until Reputation V2 is implemented. Some existing missions will move over to the Nyx system with new narrative elements, while some older content will return, including missing person, black box recovery, and retrieve cargo. The upcoming Welcome to Nyx mission progressed well too. Finally, a design review was done for Siege of Orison, with the team looking at player feedback and seeing how to improve the event to support instancing. So some new missions, some old missions returning to Nyx, so that'll give some flavor and some variety to what you can do there. And Siege of Orison getting some looks at, and they're working through what they need to change and get it ready to test instancing with that. Next, we have Narrative. Last month, the Narrative team focused on the final preparations for the release of Nyx. Since Levski was first added to the Stanton system years ago, we have been eagerly awaiting the egalitarian society settling into its proper place among the stars. We have been coordinating with design not only on the featured missions shown off at CitizenCon, but on dozens of other contracts that will become available to players once they enter the system. Narrative also worked alongside the branding and environment art teams to create unique environmental storytelling and signage throughout the new locations. The team then spent time on several future initiatives that will be coming in later patches alongside planning for next year's new content. Finally, members of the Narrative team attended the CitizenCon watch party in Leon, Spain, and were thrilled to have met so many wonderful people who support the project. Next, we have an update from Online Technology. There's some interesting stuff in here. October saw the Online Services team progress with Item Recovery Tier 1 and the early stages of instancing. They also finalized stow context and fixed bugs. With the Air reporting pipeline currently live in staging, the Live Tools team spent time making the final few adjustments. Deployment to production is scheduled for November, alongside the initial release of the new web app tool. This will allow teams to create, update, and delete crash ownership rules based on the stream where the crash occurred. For Hex, the audit logs feature was fully implemented and is set for deployment in December. The devs are currently monitoring recent changes to item recovery and the new contact service, with the goal of integrating the updates into the Network Operations Center. The network team progressed toward their first iteration of their new server meshing technology, which will be moving into initial testing in early November. While players will not experience any significant changes, this is an important first step in laying the groundwork toward dynamic server meshing. So some big testing coming up for some new server meshing technology that'll help with dynamic stuff. And they're working on instancing, so that'll be cool to see. Then we have a quite large, actually, research and development section. So let's go through it. In October, the research and development team worked on engine optimizations that will eventually make their way into the PU. For example, the bit field decompression of animation key data was optimized utilizing the CPU's SSE instruction set. Tangent reconstruction was also optimized to reduce the need for runtime allocations and to execute faster. Strings embedded in model animation headers were replaced with name table entries to allow cheap, shallow copies that don't trigger excessive runtime allocations. For rendering, material constant update processing was improved, while related internal structures were optimized to cut down on memory cost, saving dozens of megabytes of system memory. Gas Cloud Lite updates were refactored to remove the need for temporary memory allocations, which often introduced intermittent stutter and to significantly optimize the CPU processing cost. Several key optimizations were implemented to cut down on the number of draw calls as well as the number of vertices being sent to the vertex shader each frame, resulting in triangles outside the current viewport. The first batch of updates relates to the submission of casters in shadow map render passes. This will generate a more efficient hole-to-coal sunlight shadow casters during shadow map rendering. This helps with the shadow rendering cost on planets, culling hundreds of unnecessary draw calls at high level, and avoids rendering of millions of irrelevant triangles. Hole culling was also implemented for shadow casters of point, projector, and area lights. As above, this helps indoor areas with many local lights, cutting down both the CPU and GPU processing cost. The team also added support for hole culling in the cube map and static shadow map gen passes. They also implemented a projected pixel area estimator to cull objects if the projected area of their bounds is below a configurable pixel threshold. The second batch of optimizations concerned the sub-object culling of complex meshes to reduce draw call and poly count in several and shadow passes. Previously, the engine aimed to merge complex meshes as much as possible, taking material boundaries into account. This helped reduce draw call counts massively, but also meant that a lot of subparts were processed by the GPU, even if they were outside the current viewport. The new approach tests visibility of subparts first and then uses a heuristic approach to decide whether to render the merged mesh or its individual subparts. While this slightly increases the draw call count, it saves processing tens of millions of triangles by the GPU when many shadow casting lights are active in dense scenes, such as indoors. Lastly, 4 megabytes of video memory was saved for the planet terrain height map render target. Some of these optimizations were added to the Star Citizen alpha streams and will be available in PU. Others will appear in the next Squadron 42 to Star Citizen integration. Various smaller optimizations were also implemented to improve runtime performances, memory usage, and load times. So that is quite the update there. A lot of technical stuff, but I think we can kind of boil it down to they're doing a lot of things in an effort to help optimize performance and rendering, try not to have as much strain on your GPU and your CPU so you can hopefully get more frames and just better performance overall, better quality. And sounds like there'll be some more optimization stuff that will come in the next Squadron 42 to Star Citizen integration. Sounds like there's a few other features or little things that'll be coming over from there sometime this year. Some of the final polish stuff is what they said during CitizenCon, so I am very excited to see what other updates they have for us, and hopefully it helps the performance quite a bit. And then our last little section is our VFX. VFX supported all of the game's upcoming vehicles, with some standouts being the Shiv and the Stinger, and the Yormandi was a huge achievement for the VFX team. In particular, the beam attack and body emissions required additional care to bring them up to quality. I will say, all the sounds and stuff, the lighting, everything, all the effects for those ships and for the Yormandi, very well done. It definitely helps the immersion of the game and of the experience that you're participating in with those. So, hats off to them, and I'm really looking forward to seeing their other work on other new ships coming in, other new creatures, locations, all that good stuff. So that is the October 2025 PU monthly report. Definitely a lot more than I thought there might be. Again, because usually they're a little bit slower after CitizenCon, but there's a lot of stuff. So big highlights. The ship stuff, always a big highlight. The Aurora's progressing well. We're getting a lot of new ships at IAE. The Anvil Liberator is in pre-production. I would expect that to go into full production probably in the next month or two. The Perseus sounds like it's really fun to play with based on what they said in that section. There's some gameplay updates coming. There's further work being done for item recovery, a whole bunch of stuff. So quite a good monthly report, I would say. Some really good updates, and there's a lot to look forward to, I think, with the upcoming 4.4. It's still in Evocati, but I think we'll probably see it in at least Wave 1 by the end of the week. So really looking forward to seeing that. So if you have any thoughts on the monthly report, anything we talked about today, make sure to let me know down in the comments. Do you have any thoughts on the ship images, any hints of maybe what they could be, or anything that I may have missed pointing out? Definitely point that out down in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to leave a like, as it really helps the channel out, and subscribe for more Star Citizen news that'll be coming in the very near future with IAE and everything concerned with that. But I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you in the verse.